Poor sleep habits don't just leave you tired. They can trigger a heart attack or stroke while you're lying in your own bed, completely unaware. And the most dangerous part? Most of these habits feel harmless. Some even feel relaxing. You've been told that a good night's sleep is simply about getting enough hours. That's not the full truth. What you do in the hour before bed, and how you sleep once you're there, can quietly put pressure on your heart and your blood vessels for years without a single warning sign. By the time symptoms show up, the damage is already done. Stay with me until the end, because the habit at the top of this list is so common that nearly 7 out of 10 people over 60 do it every single night without knowing it strains the cardiovascular system. And once you understand why, you'll never look at your bedtime routine the same way again. I'm Dr. Michael Carter, a physician specialized in senior health with over 15 years of dedicated clinical experience. I've sat across from men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who did everything right during the day, ate well, walked daily, took their medications, and still ended up in the emergency room because of something that happened at night. What I'm about to share isn't meant to frighten you for no reason. It's meant to hand you the same information I wish more of my patients had years before their diagnosis, because so much of this is preventable if you know what to look for. Here's what's happening inside your body at night that most people never think about. When you sleep, your blood pressure is supposed to naturally dip by 10 to 20%. Doctors call this nocturnal dipping, and it gives your heart a few hours of rest it doesn't get during the day. But certain habits interfere with this dip. When your blood pressure stays elevated through the night instead of dropping, your heart works overtime for hours on end, every single night, for years. Research has linked this pattern, known as non-dipping, to a significantly higher risk of heart attack and stroke compared to people whose blood pressure dips normally during sleep. This isn't rare. It isn't something that only happens to people who eat poorly or never exercise. It happens quietly, through habits so ordinary you'd never suspect them. Let's go through them, starting with the one that does the least damage, and building up to the habit that concerns me the most. Number 5. Sleeping in a room that's too warm. It feels cozy, especially for older adults who often feel cold more easily. But a warm bedroom keeps your heart rate and blood pressure elevated instead of letting them fall the way they're supposed to overnight. Sleep researchers have found that cooler room temperatures, generally in the mid-60s Fahrenheit, support deeper sleep stages and a healthier overnight blood pressure dip. When the room stays warm, your body has to work harder to regulate its internal temperature, and that extra work doesn't stop just because you're asleep. I think of Patricia, a 68-year-old retired schoolteacher from Nashville. She loves sleeping in a warm room, always had, ever since she was a girl. For years, she woke up groggy, with mild headaches, and just assumed that was normal aging. Her blood pressure readings at her yearly checkups were creeping up, and neither of us initially connected it to her bedroom. Once we talked through her nighttime routine, and she started cooling her room down and using a lighter blanket, her morning blood pressure readings improved within about 3 weeks. She told me, "Doctor, I didn't realize how much better I could feel just from being a little cooler at night. Small changes, big results." Number 4. Scrolling on your phone right before bed. The blue light itself gets a lot of attention, but the bigger issue is what that scrolling does to your nervous system. News alerts, family drama on social media, even just the mental stimulation of reading and reacting, all of it keeps your body in a low-grade state of alertness. That alertness means your stress hormone, cortisol, doesn't taper off the way it should before sleep. Elevated evening cortisol has been associated with poorer overnight blood pressure control. This is preventable. This is reversible. It doesn't require giving up your phone forever, just giving your mind 30 to 60 minutes to wind down before you try to fall asleep. Number 3. Going to bed on a heavy late meal. Your digestive system doesn't shut off just because you're horizontal. A large meal within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime forces your heart and digestive organs to keep working while your body should be slowing down. This is also tied to acid reflux, which can disturb sleep and, in more severe or chronic cases, has been associated with increased cardiovascular strain. Here's what's happening inside your body right now if this is you. Instead of resting, your heart is helping manage digestion, blood sugar spikes, and disrupted sleep, all at the same time, night after night. Number 2, drinking alcohol as a sleep aid. So many of my patients tell me a glass of wine or a nightcap helps them fall asleep faster, and it often does. But here's what terrifies me most about this one. Alcohol may help you fall asleep, but it fragments your sleep in the second half of the night and has been shown to raise heart rate and blood pressure during those later sleep stages, exactly when your body should be experiencing its deepest rest. Over months and years, this pattern has been linked in research to a higher risk of irregular heart rhythms, including atrial fibrillation, which itself significantly raises stroke risk. I remember James, a 74-year-old retired postal worker from Phoenix. For 3 years, he'd had a couple of drinks most nights to wind down, as he put it. His wife noticed he'd started snoring heavily and would occasionally seem to gasp for air. He came to my office after a scare, a brief episode where his heart felt like it was racing and skipping beats. We found he had developed atrial fibrillation, and after a full workup, his cardiologist and I both pointed to the combination of untreated sleep apnea and nightly alcohol as major contributors. He made changes, cut back significantly on evening drinking, and got treated for his sleep apnea. 8 months later, his heart rhythm had stabilized, and he told me, "Doctor, I had no idea my nightcap was doing this to me. I feel like I've gotten years back." His wife no longer worries every time she hears him go quiet in his sleep. And now, the habit at the top of this list. Number 1, ignoring loud snoring or breathing pauses during sleep. In other words, untreated sleep apnea. This is the one I want every person over 60 listening to take seriously, because it is so common and so often dismissed as just snoring. When breathing repeatedly stops and starts during the night, oxygen levels drop, and the heart and blood vessels are placed under sudden, repeated strain, sometimes dozens or even hundreds of times in a single night. Studies have found that untreated moderate to severe sleep apnea is associated with a substantially higher risk of both heart attack and stroke compared to people without the condition, and it's especially common and especially underdiagnosed in adults over 60. This is why I said earlier that a study has found nearly 7 out of 10 older adults show some signs of disordered breathing during sleep, many without ever having been formally evaluated. The tragedy is that this is one of the most treatable conditions on this entire list, yet it remains one of the most overlooked, because the person sleeping usually has no idea it's happening. It's almost always a spouse, a partner, or an adult child who notices first. I think of Robert, a 71-year-old retired mechanic from Denver. His wife had been elbowing him awake for years because of his snoring, and more than once she told me she'd watched him stop breathing for what felt like far too long before gasping back awake. He came to my office not because of the snoring itself, but because he was constantly exhausted, no matter how many hours he slept. We referred him for a sleep study, which confirmed moderate obstructive sleep apnea. 6 weeks after starting treatment, he came back for a follow-up. He told me, "Doctor, I feel like a different man. I have energy in the afternoons for the first time in years, and my wife finally sleeps through the night too." His blood pressure, which had been creeping upward for 2 years despite medication adjustments, came down enough that his primary care doctor was able to reduce one of his medications, under close medical supervision, of course. Before we go further, I'm curious, how old are you? In your 60s, 70s, maybe beyond? If someone in your household has ever mentioned your snoring or said they've noticed you pause while breathing at night, type snoring in the comments below. Let's see how many of us share this. If you believe your nighttime habits could be affecting your heart health, type yes in the comments. If you're not convinced, type 0. Your response helps other viewers realize they're not alone in this. If this information seems valuable, hit that like button right now. Now let me tell you exactly how to start addressing this, starting tonight. First, look honestly at your bedroom environment. Cool it down a few degrees if you can, and keep screens out of the last 30 minutes before sleep. Second, try to finish eating at least 2 to 3 hours before bed, and if you enjoy an evening drink, talk with your doctor about how it may be affecting your sleep and heart rhythm, rather than stopping any prescribed medication or making major changes on your own. Third, and this is the most important step, if you or someone close to you has ever mentioned loud snoring, gasping, or pauses in breathing during sleep, bring it up with your doctor and ask specifically about a sleep study. This single conversation is one of the most valuable 5 minutes you can spend for your long-term heart health. Within a week of cooling your room and adjusting your evening routine, many people notice they wake up less groggy. Within a month of addressing sleep apnea, if that turns out to be a factor for you, many patients report dramatically more daytime energy, and their blood pressure numbers often begin to improve as well. This is a process, not an overnight fix. So be consistent, just like you would be with any other daily habit that protects your health. Don't make these critical errors. First, don't assume snoring is just something that happens with age. It's common, but common doesn't mean harmless. Second, don't stop or change any prescribed heart or blood pressure medication on your own. Based on anything you hear in a video, always work with your doctor. Third, don't wait for a scary event before asking for a sleep evaluation. The whole point of this information is to help you act before that happens, not after. You're not broken. Your nighttime routine may simply be working against you without your realizing it. This isn't just aging, it's often a correctable pattern. Your body wants to rest and repair overnight. It just needs the right conditions to actually do that. So, we've just gone through 5 nighttime habits that can quietly strain your heart and raise your risk of heart attack and stroke. A bedroom that's too warm, late-night phone scrolling, heavy late meals, using alcohol as a sleep aid, and, at the very top, untreated sleep apnea. Each one on its own may seem small. But when several of these overlap, night after night, year after year, they add up to real strain on your cardiovascular system. My message to you isn't panic, it's empowerment. You now have information that far too many people never hear until after a health scare. Here's my challenge to you. Pick one habit from this list, just one, and commit to changing it for the next 30 days. Track how you feel. Notice your energy, your mornings, how rested you actually feel. Your heart will thank you, and so will the people who love you. If this video helped you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a parent, a spouse, or a friend who snores louder than they'd like to admit. It might be the conversation that gets them into their doctor's office for the first time in years. And now I want to hear from you. Which habit on this list surprised you the most? Share your answer in the comments. I read every single one, because remember, protecting your heart while you sleep isn't about fear. It's about paying attention to the ordinary moments most people overlook. Take care of yourself and take care of your sleep.